Hi. I gotta turn this off so that I don't get interrupted when I'm making this live video I just did. Hi, it's Char. And I gotta turn my glasses off too. Listen, if you are opening this, the tagline said only open in case of emergency. So if you're in the middle of an emergency, you need to save and bookmark this, because in case of emergencies, we don't see those coming. And I've actually met with a few people over the last few days that are going through some crisis and some life emergencies. And the beautiful part of going through things like that and knowing that you're in the middle of that is that you're still alive. That's good. If part of your emergency is that somebody else isn't alive, let me tell you, they're at a much better place. So find some comfort in that. But what I wanted to do is kind of just create a few notes to help get you through these moments, because as long as we're alive, what you need to remember is that we're going through something, coming out of something, we're getting ready to go through something. This is just living. It kind of very much mirrors a heartbeat. And if your life is ever like this, it really only happens when you die. So I am sorry that you're going through the emergency that you're going through, but I want you to know this, that you're going to get through it. And I want to share some tips so that not only can you get through it, but you can thrive through it. Because truly it's a choice. And if you know going into the situation, some of the choices that you have, that's some of the things that you do to get your control back through a time. Emergencies happen because things are spinning out of control, or it's chaos and we don't feel like we have control of that. So let me help you through some of that. First and foremost, what I'm going to say is I went through a crisis about a year and a half ago that completely devastated and created chaos in every area of my life, and didn't see that coming. And so I got a little bit of experience on how to not just get through it, but how to thrive through it, because I'm in a much better place today. And believe it or not, what I'm going to share with you is that I wouldn't change a thing. And because I went through it, and I was consciously aware going through it, paying attention to how I'm going through it so I can share it with you, I'm hoping to lessen the impact of what you're going through and make it a little bit easier, okay? Going into the situation, I am a very spiritual person. I'm not very religious. And I'm not religious. There's not one religion over another. It's just religion in general tends to have a lot of rules and a lot of judgment involved. And I don't believe that we're supposed to do that. I think in the Bible, I'm going to give you a little Cliff Note version of the Bible to me. And this is in no ways meaning to disrespect the Bible, okay? But in the Old Testament, we had a top 10 list, and we didn't listen. And then God sent his only son, and we killed him. And in the New Testament, God narrowed it down to one rule. It's the golden rule. And the only thing we are supposed to do is love. And so if you are at any point in your journey that you're not feeling love for another person, you walk away, and maybe use that as a litmus of something you need to work on within yourself. But I cannot encourage you enough to go find what that anchor is to you. I don't care what you call it, but I know that before I went through my crisis, I had a very deep connection and a trust with my faith that anchored me through this. And no one can tell you what that is to you, because that is a relationship that only you develop. It's kind of like somebody trying to come up and tell you what your marriage is or what your best friend. They can't. That's a very personal relationship that you will build, and you will build trust on it. And so if you don't have that, I would so much encourage you to find that, or find what that is, the reconnection with something that is based in love and that connects us all. For me, it's my faith. For me, I call it God, I call it Jesus, but I don't really care if you call it anything other. You can call it banana for all I care. But I know going into the situation that I went through, I had an incredibly steadfast faith in something that was bigger than me, that kept us all connected. And in that, it gives me great purpose. And if I did not have that, think about this. I had somebody who completely made up a story that was false, kind of knew how to manipulate the system and all the resources around the system, and came after me. And so from the beginning, I knew, A, it's not true, and B, if I'm going through this, it's because my God that I know, that I have a relationship with, knows that I can handle this and that I'm strong enough to weather this storm. That alone makes you go through a situation differently than being reactive. Because from the beginning, when I was in the parking lot of the jail, getting ready to go turn myself in, I knew this wasn't true. While the world may not know that, I knew it wasn't true, and I knew that God knew it wasn't true. And I'm going to just kind of let him drive this because I'm not in control of what's going on. Now, my experience was very, very visual and very known. Yours may not, but you need to know that you are not brought to something if you're not strong enough to go through it. And while I went through this process, I had no clue that I was this strong and that I would be able to weather this storm because it was big. And if you're going through an emergency, I know it feels overwhelming. I know it feels big. I know it feels like it's something that you can't handle, but you need to know that you wouldn't be here if you couldn't. And that story alone, I go to my Bible. My Bible I read every day, and I don't read it to judge the world. I read it as a guidebook to help me connect deeper and build a deeper relationship with God, because from the beginning, I went to the Bible and I thought my situation would go away in 3 days because I thought law of attraction, I'm going to draw this all to me. It didn't happen. But immediately I went to the Bible and I clung very closely to the story of Jonah because I thought I'm going to be, when Jonah was in the belly of the whale, he didn't know it was 3 days. Okay. And so after 3 days, I'm still in my situation. Jonah's a little bit of a wimp because he's out of the bellies. Well, I'm going to go on, and I found more stories and I found more things to connect with that helped me get me through this moment. Really only have 3 tips to get you through this. So this is the first and the most important and the deepest. And it's the deepest because this is the stuff that you do before you go through something. This is the stuff you do that after you've come through it, you reflect back to see how loved you are and how valuable you are and how this experience made you stronger. Because you can continue to play the story in your head that keeps you in the past, or you can find the little nuggets of goodness that will build you up stronger and make you a little bit of a badass so that you can go through life, right? So my faith was something that I kept leaning on. I kept going to the Bible. I kept reading the stories. For instance, I read Noah. And I actually went through my story for about 200 days. So I was really wishful thinking at the beginning, okay? 40 days, 40 nights. And I'm reading the story of Noah. And I'm seeing that Noah, instead of reading the Bible, I walked it. And there were stories outside of the Bible, but the Bible really anchored me in this, okay? And so what I can share with you, my experience was, and it's not in the book. You didn't make the final cut. But I'm going to tell you this, that on day 13 and day 27... Noah wanted to jump off that boat. And I know that because when I was going through my own personal journey, I wanted to jump off the boat. And so it gave a whole nother level of meaning to every story I'd read since childhood that I never was able to experience like that. So I'm going to encourage you very much to go to those things that anchor you, that inspire you, that give you hope. And after 41 days, Noah was a wimp because I went on and I'm still going through my stuff. So I had to go cling to another story. And I clung to Job, and Job was pretty much a badass. So I got nothing on Job, okay? But in the moment of reading Job's story and even Noah's story and Jonah's story, I found that there were things that I was grateful for. Even though I was going through this chaos and this person still attacking me and creating all of this devastation and lies and pollution, I found myself returning to experiences from childhood where I was turning my ears off and not finding my value in the world, but I was finding my value in myself and connecting with the thing that anchored me through the storm. And while the world may not see my value, I knew that God would. So that was first and foremost. If you do not have that, what I know is that if you go through a situation in life without having that anchor, you're going to turn to drugs, you're going to turn to alcohol, you're going to turn to gambling, you're going to turn to the things that will destroy you through the process. And so right now, before you go through the process, go find that. Go start building it, because a relationship is not built overnight. A relationship and the trust to be able to go through an experience that we would label an emergency. You don't just trust just anybody. This thing that I went through was because years before I had built this deep faith that was steadfastly built on a foundation I know I could rely on. So you need to make sure that you go and you start doing that now, because the relationship that you need is only built by you. It's not one that comes to you or is granted to you as a gift or a piece of paper when you walk through the door of a building. This is something that you build. Nobody can tell you you're doing it wrong either. And so first and foremost, find that. Secondly, remember there's only 3, so we're on number 2 now. Secondly is, when I was going through what I was going through, I kept a journal. And every day there were 2 questions that I asked myself. And most recently, when I had the Jane Goes stay with me. Now, Jane Goes are domestic violence victims that kind of get in the same sleeve that I found myself in, that I'm able to help and to get them back on their feet. Now, I am just sharing with her what I did, and it's pretty neat to see how the impact is that and how effective it is and how it works. Is that every morning when you get up, you're going to ask yourself, when you're in the middle of an emergency or chaos, what is the one thing I'm going to get done today? And you guys, I have to be so brutally honest with you. Some days it was just that I was going to get up because I was so sad and I was in shock, and my soul felt damaged, that there were days that I did not get out of bed, and that I was, it's easy for me to sit here a year and a half later, almost a year later, actually, from surviving the entire process and say, yeah, it was 6 months and we can just go on. But I want you to know it was not easy. It's hard. Everything that you're feeling, going through whatever emergency or crisis that you're going through, no, you're not alone, okay? It feels overwhelming. It feels defeating. It feels unfair. That is what grows us, okay? So every day, and allow yourself the grace that some days it's just get out of bed. Some days it's going to be that I brush my teeth. Some days it's going to be that I took a shower. Some day it's going to be that you took steps towards something that got you to the place you wanted to go. But in the immediate crisis, allow yourself the grace that you allow others, and allow yourself to be human, okay? And so know, and I want you to keep track of this. It's really, well, that stunk because I was really going on a roll and it had to quit. Now I'm back, but that's okay. So I already covered number 1. If you didn't see it, go back and watch the last video I just posted on the wall. So I'm going to go to number 2, okay? Number 2 is, what's the one thing that you're going to do today? And you're going to allow yourself the grace that it's only one thing, okay? Because in the middle of crisis and chaos, sometimes you can't do anything more than that. And so you're going to allow yourself that grace of just doing the one thing, but you're going to keep track of it. And the third thing that you're going to do is that every single day, I want you to keep track of the thing that you're grateful for. And at the very beginning, it might be small steps, but I want you to know that you could never rename the same thing. All right. And so you're going to be grateful. It might be your children. It might be your house. It might be eventually the ability to see and to walk and to hear and to work. And there's so much, even in the middle of emergency and chaos, that you have to be grateful for. And so you need to remember that and keep track of it. And why it's so important for you to keep track of is that along the way, when we're going through these moments that create chaos, that create emergencies, there's going to be things that punch you. There's going to be things that set you off track because we think that we know the direction it's going to go, but we're not really in charge of all of that, okay? And so when you keep track of what you're going to do today and the things that you're grateful for, when life delivers that blow to you that takes you a few steps back, you're able to reflect back and you're able to see how far you've come. Because you will experience blows and setbacks because you're not in charge of the processes. I know from my own story, as I was going along knowing that my story was based in truth and the story that was being broadcasted to the world was not, that I was keeping track of what I was doing and the 5 things I was grateful for, so that as this situation continued to unfold and I was continuing to be abused and there was continued mass destruction and chaos being created by this person, I was able to look back to see how far I've come. And I was being able, because when we can keep our mindset in gratitude and not lack, because your mind will, if you're looking for it, that's what your mind will find more of in your life. And so at a time when you're feeling lack or going through lack or what feels like lack or an emergency or chaos, to make sure that your thoughts are always grounded and focused in gratitude and making sure that you understand in the immediate moment, while it does not make sense, and I call those dot making days. Those are days that you just, at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, none of that made sense. I don't understand why I'm even in this situation. It's it's unfair. It's this or that. And by the way, if somebody ever told you that life was fair, don't listen to them anymore, because I don't think they told you the truth. Life is not fair. It's not meant to be. It was never supposed to be. It's just not. And so on those days that don't make sense and they feel like the whole world's picking on you, when you go to bed that day, find the gratitude in knowing that you lived through it and that you dropped a dot today. And just like a child when you were doing a coloring book, God will come through and number those dots, and someday they will connect together and you will be able to see the picture. But in the moment, you have to trust that it's just what I call a dot making day. Sometimes we're dropping dots in other people's books and that will never make sense. So don't spend too much time trying to figure it out because it may not even be in your own book. So I promise you, if you're in the middle of an emergency or chaos and you're lost, that if you do these 3 things, and remember the one thing you do now, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't brush your teeth the morning you go see the dentist. You brush your teeth for the months in between the dentist, that when you go see the dentist, you have good teeth, right? So right now, before you need it, or if you're in the middle of needing it, go find that thing that angers you. I call faith. I call God. I call Jesus, but I don't really care what you call it because it just anchors you, okay? And anchors you in a good way. Anchors you where you understand that you are so valuable and you are so amazing and loved, and everything that has ever happened to this point, no matter how bad it is in your favor. And all we have to do is slightly shift our focus from not how bad it is, but how much it benefited you. How it made you the warrior or the person that you are here today. Had you not gone through all of that, you wouldn't be where you are right this moment. That's pretty fantastic. You're in charge of all of that. So go find your anchor. And remember, give yourself every day a little grace in the one thing that you're going to do today. I know in my house, I would go into my Jane Go's room and we had a mirror and I would write. We would have conversations. I was coaching her. I love dry erase markers on all the mirrors and windows in your house. Go ahead and use it. It's really easy to clean up. I had to be careful because I did write something on my garage door and it wasn't wiping off. I had to get paint. Anyway, just know, keep track of this, okay? What one thing are you going to do today so that even when something pushes you back, you can see how far you've come, and the 5 things you're grateful for? Because even if you're in the middle of your worst day that you've ever had, your worst day is still somebody else's best. Don't forget that, okay? Let it help you stay connected. Let it help you find your purpose, not to give up. You are where you're at right now because you can handle this. You are strong enough. I promise you, you are. I promise you, you are. And you can get through this moment. We need you to get through this moment because it is through those moments that grow us and grow our emotional muscles that make us badass and connected to each other so that we can be here for each other. In a society that's trying to teach us to disconnect from each other, don't listen to that. Speak up, share your story. I'm a lot more vocal. If you're not vocal, that's okay, but you'll still know it. You could spot it, you could see it. You know when somebody else is going through crisis. And in that moment, slow down and love them. It's the only thing we're told to do. So you guys know what? I hope you're not in the middle of an emergency, and I want you to know I'm not, but I'm just sharing some notes with you, okay? And that through this process, remember that you are really powerful. And a lot of our power lies within us. No matter how much it feels the world is taking it, you are so powerful within yourself. And that in that power, part of it is that we're all connected. And I hope that through this message, you feel loved. That's all I'm throwing out in the world till the day I die. Love, because it's what connects us. And you know what? If you got a little tidbit of help from all this, good. It's your turn. Go love the world. But you got to start with yourself first, okay? I'll talk to you next time.